One of my favorite Bible stories is the story of the Israelites who had been wandering in the wilderness for about 40 years with the Lord. They are now standing on the banks of the Jordan River, and the Lord is about to send them over across that river into the Promised Land. And the first obstacle is going to be to defeat the giant, the Jericho, the big city, the fortified city, the city with great fences and great defenses would be in their way. And God is preparing them now to go forward with Him. Yes, they've been wandering in the wilderness for some years, and they have kind of probably become comfortable. When they needed better water, God provided. When they needed food that they didn't have, God provided. When they needed whatever it was they needed, God would encourage them and provide for them. One of the things that I like about the story of the Israelites standing on the banks of the Jordan River and getting ready to cross over into Jericho was the fact that they were not aware of what was going to happen. And so God begins to instruct them there in Joshua chapter 1. He tells them to be strong and of good courage. That means, in our terms today, get ready. It's not going to be easy. Now, friend, let me remind you that we're living in strange days, and this is 2022, and much has happened in our world that we don't understand, and we are looking for the Lord to return at any time, and we're hoping that until He comes for us, that He will let us live somewhat of a comfortable life. But let me remind you that here in Joshua chapter 1, the children of Israel were called to get up and get out of their comfort zone, to get ready. And so God uses words like be strong and of good courage to tell them how to get ready. As we talk tonight about encouraging ourselves, encouraging one another to do the good things God would have us to do, let us remember that it's probably going to have to be done outside our comfort zone. We're going to be moved a bit. We're not going to like what comes at us from time to time. But we need to be ready, and we need to be obedient to God and what He said to do. Just as He told the Israelites, He tells us in many situations in the New Testament to be still and know He's God. That's Psalms, of course. But over in the Hebrews, He writes about don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together, but be encouraged and stand fast and don't be afraid. Over and over again, we hear that term, don't be afraid. What's God doing? He's trying to get us ready. It's not going to be easy, but what He wants us to do is be strong and be courageous throughout whatever comes our way, throughout whatever battle we face. So as the Israelites are standing there on the banks of the Jordan, and God says, be strong and of good courage. Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. Don't take courage, because I'm going to be with you. And wherever you go, I'll be with you. Wherever you go, there's our comfort. Even though we're moving out of our comfort zone, God is our comfort. And we know that He'll be with us. Those Israelites had wandered for 40 years, going nowhere, although they were with God. Why was all that necessary? We can speculate, but I believe that God was preparing them for what would come. They had been having a pretty good life there in Egypt, even though they were slaves. They were still, they had most of everything they needed. They were going to come to hard places. They were going to have times when they didn't know what to do. They were going to need to look to God completely and not rely on themselves. I remember since the beginning of COVID a couple of 3 years ago, we've all had to learn some things that we didn't know perhaps before. And that was that we couldn't do everything we thought we could for ourselves. We needed somebody to help us. It wasn't the government. It wasn't the medical association. It was our God who wanted to help us. He sends things along our way so that we might learn through the circumstances and situations we find ourselves in. And so these Israelites need to learn a lesson. They need to learn now, even after being with God for 40 years in the wilderness and watching Him prepare and provide for them day by day, they still need to learn that it was not going to be easy. Be strong. That indicates you can't just think everything's going to come your way, honey. You've got to get ready for something that's unusual, something that may hurt a little bit, something that may be a little bit hard to bear. So be strong. He wants us to be strong and be encouraged. Why should we be encouraged? Now, if we can get all upset because we don't know what's going to happen in the world around us, shouldn't we be able to take courage in the fact that we know exactly what God has told us He is going to do for us? And if we just take time to stay in the Word and stay close to Him and listen, we'll be prepared when the time comes. These Israelites were going to be prepared for Jericho, but they were going to have to follow the Lord's direction. They were going to have to, first of all, be strong and of good courage, not be afraid, do what God tells them to do, don't hesitate. And if they would, then God would instruct them. And under Joshua's leadership, they needed to get ready because they were going to claim great victories for God in the days ahead. What do you think God has for me and you tomorrow, the next day, in the next year? Should it be that we would have an easy life where we had to do nothing but just live it? I don't think God wants us that way. He wants us to be ready. To be ready to move out of our comfort zone. To be ready to share the gospel with those around us because things are getting to be so bad that people don't understand why the world is like it is. What an opportunity to share the gospel. And be ready to step out and take a place in teaching others. It might be that you have a great ability to communicate. I bet you could be a Little League baseball coach or a mom that knows exactly how to direct her children and what they ought to do. What about taking 6 or 8 or 10 of those boys and girls in a classroom maybe and teaching them the things of God so that they can be ready and be strong when the trials come in their lives? You know, we need to stop thinking about being comfortable ourselves and start thinking about what would God have us to do. Now, with that all said, let me remind you that we need to be ready, and God wants us to be ready to live out our faith wherever we are. The workplace is a wonderful place today to live out your faith. But what we must do in order to do it as He would have us do it is open our lives to God. Look at what God has for us. Claim all that He has promised us, and then move forward in hope and in assurance that He will do what He said He would do. I don't know about you, but I'm excited about what tomorrow holds. I don't know what it holds, but I know who holds tomorrow, and I know who holds me in His hand. And so what I want to do is be ready. I don't want to think it's all going to be easy. I want to think it's going to be hard because God has said, I need you to be strong. I need you to be courageous. I don't want you to be afraid. Now, you cannot be afraid. You got to move forward, as I tell you, and trust in me. There's the solution. Be strong and courageous in living, would you? I know God would be pleased with that. Now, what we want to do in closing today is just tell you, just don't be afraid. Step on out. Step out of your comfort zone. God will be with you. And we can pray one for another and encourage one another and help one another as we go along. Time and time again, people have had questions in the last couple of years. What's going to happen? We're so worrying about what we don't know that we fail to remember what we do know. I read an interesting quote this week, and I want to share it with you. It's by an unknown author, but it spoke to my heart. We don't know what we're going to face tomorrow. But this is what the writer said, and I quote, "You'll never know the strength of your ankle until you have to face the wrath of the storm." Our God is a great God, isn't He? But we'll never know how steady our rock is in Jesus Christ if we don't ever go through the storm. So get ready. Trust God. Don't be afraid. Be courageous. Be strong. And God will bless you. Hey, have a good night. I hope that'll help you a little bit as we prepare for the unknown. We know what God's going to do. Let's trust Him. And then step on out and get busy in these days serving Him. Thank you for coming and joining me on the video. And I trust you'll have a good evening. Continue, please, to pray for Miss Sandra. These days, she's battling nausea really bad today. And we would ask that the doctors would find some way to keep the medicine from making her so sick and that she might feel better soon. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for the encouragement you give us. And we hope to just pass a little bit of what God shares with us on to you in a way that would encourage you. Have a good night. I hope to see you here tomorrow when we have encouragement with the Johnsons. Bye-bye.